Out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Michelle Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here to GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Terror on the streets of Manchester, quite literally the area in which I grew up. I will tell you all about it, and we're going to have the reaction from here, America. Breaking on The Late Show Live tonight.
He's got bombs on him.
7 minutes that once again brought terror to Britain's streets.
Earlier today, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish community, a vile individual committed a terrorist attack that attacked Jews because they are Jews.
Tonight, a warning from the Prime Minister. Hatred is on the rise in Britain and it cannot be ignored. And in breaking news, the attacker has been named as 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami. We're going to tell you a little more about this individual shortly. But the repercussions are being felt here in Washington, D.C. too this evening. Does Britain now need armed policing like the National Guard that we see on the streets here? Could that kind of visible force have prevented this attack elsewhere?
From the very bottom of our very British hearts, sorry.
Knock, knock. Whoosh.
Now turn your dials to max inclusion.
Television is accused of misrepresenting Britain as new research shows what we've all noticed. Certain minorities are being overrepresented in advertising and TV shows, whilst pensioners and the disabled are being forgotten. And you know what's going on here? Stick with us. I'll bring you some unbelievable footage, actually, emerging from LaGuardia Airport in New York tonight. Breaking tonight on The Late Show live on GB News. Police have declared this morning's attack on a Manchester synagogue a terrorist incident.
Based on what we know, counter-terrorism policing has declared this as a terrorist incident.
2 worshippers are dead, 4 more are in hospital, and within minutes the suspect was shot dead by police.
He's got bombs on him.
Suspect has tonight been named by Greater Manchester Police as 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami, a British citizen of Syrian descent. But the Home Office has confirmed to GB News that the attacker entered the UK as a young child and was then granted British citizenship in 2006 as a minor, making him a Syrian national. But that suspect, Jihad al-Shami, rammed his car into members of the Jewish community before launching a knife attack at a Hebrew congregation. And in some more breaking news tonight, pro-Palestinian protesters have taken to the streets of London, where they have been seen clashing with police and chanting death to the IDF. It's also being reported tonight that police have asked organisers of a pro-Palestine action protest to postpone so that resources can be used to protect Jewish and Muslim communities. But Defend Our Juries, which has been organising the protests in London, says that it intends to go ahead with its actions on Saturday, adding that it is up to the Met whether or not to prioritise arrests. Let me know your thoughts this evening, gbnews.com/your say. Let's get more, though, on this with the chairman of the National Jewish Assembly, Gary Mond, who's in our London studio. Good evening, Gary, or good morning there in London. Good to see you. It's a shame it's under these particular circumstances, isn't it? First of all, your reaction to this loss of life.
It's absolutely horrendous, and my heart goes out to the families of those who are bereaved, and I wish those who are in hospital a refuah shalema, which is a Jewish expression for get well soon. Words fail me as to say how upset I am and how upset the Jewish community is as to what has happened today.
And tell us about Yom Kippur, Gary. Why is today so special to the Jewish community?
Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement, when we atone for our sins over the past year, and we ask for forgiveness from those people whom we have wronged or we have been unkind to, and we will be sealed in the Book of Life for another year. And we're usually in synagogue from last night on the Kol Nidre, which is the night before Yom Kippur, and the whole of the day today, until about 7:30 this evening when Yom Kippur finished. That's why most Jews have not actually seen their phones or their computers until the early evening, didn't actually know what was going on.
Just explain that to me, because we've been trying to get guests on this today, and it is very difficult because you don't use technology today, do you, as you say? So a lot of Jewish people will have just been seeing it for the first time this evening. That's absolutely correct. We don't use technology on Yom Kippur. I wasn't prepared to come on the show earlier in the day when I was first asked, but once it was after 7:30, then I'm free to behave as normal. Yeah. OK. And what was your reaction when you first saw this, Gary? My reaction was, like so many other Jews, that it was inevitable, that it's been a long time coming. We've seen such Jew hatred build up over the last 5 years or so. And frankly, the blame lies with Keir Starmer's government and Rishi Sunak's government as well. What has been happening, particularly with the marches of hate, which are not really pro-Palestinian at all. They're actually anti-Semitic marches. If they were pro-Palestinian, those who were marching would have marched when Bashar Assad was massacring the Palestinian population. And those who really care about Palestinian people today should be getting behind Donald Trump's initiative on solving the Gaza problem, because that will be in the Palestinians' best interests.
But quite honestly, the situation is absolutely disastrous, and Jewish people are now very, very frightened in the UK. And we do blame Keir Starmer's government especially because of what it hasn't done. To quote Boris Johnson, the sight of seeing Keir Starmer and 2 other cabinet ministers at West London Synagogue this evening was vomiting-inducing, quite honestly, because of what they have not been doing over the last few years. They have not actually taken any action to protect the Jewish community. We should see the marches banned. We should see much tougher sentences, or maybe needing even the law to be changed, on all of the anti-Semitism that's going on in so many areas of public life. In our schools, where children are being insulted because they're Jewish. In our hospitals, where nurses are wearing lapels saying "Free Palestine." In our universities, we're seeing horrendous situations where Jewish students literally feel under threat most of the time. We see it in entertainment, we see it in sport. It is all over the place. Action needs to be taken. But the point is, you see, this government does not actually care about the Jewish community. The sight of Starmer in synagogue makes no difference whatsoever. They don't care. There is no will there. There was no will there. There was no real will from the previous Conservative government. I do hope that if we get a Reform UK government in the near future, things will get better. But the point is that we just don't believe that the Jewish community do not believe that this government is going to do anything to change the situation. That's why so many of them are thinking of leaving the country.
Let's have a quick look, shall we, Gary, at what Keir Starmer said today. Here's the Prime Minister.
Earlier today, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish community, a vile individual committed a terrorist attack that attacked Jews because they are Jews, and attacked Britain because of our values. And while this is not a new hate, this is something Jews have always lived with, we must be clear. It is a hatred that is rising once again, and Britain must defeat it once again.
Gary, is it an attack on Britain and our values?
Yes, it is. The Jews are simply the first. After they've got the Saturday people, they will go for the Sunday people. That's an old expression, and particularly militant Islamists, Islamic fundamentalists, their next target is the Christian community. We witnessed in Nigeria what really is a genocide, with fundamentalist Islamists murdering Christians. And that is what will happen in future once they feel they have dealt with the Jews. They're going to turn their attention to the Christians next. First the Saturday people, then the Sunday people.
Gary, you can see it across your face. It's completely understandable, the emotion that you're flooded with this evening. And can you just describe that to me? Is it a combination of just sadness, but also just anger and frustration?
You've summed it up exactly. It's tremendous frustration with government, that we have seen a government that's allowed itself to do nothing, essentially. Keir Starmer's words are all very well, but what action has he taken? What action has his government ministers taken? That is why there's so much disappointment. And all we see, and what the Jewish community did see a couple of weeks ago, was the recognition of a fictitious Palestinian state, which quite simply was virtue signalling to, I believe, the Islamist community. The irony of all this actually is, in my personal opinion, this isn't going to help Keir Starmer at all with the Muslim vote, because the Muslims generally are in 2 categories: those who are fundamentalist Islamists who are going to vote for Jeremy Corbyn's party anyway, or the Gaza independence, and those who are not Islamists, who are moderate individuals who want to get on and enjoy their lives and be successful in their lives, who are going to vote on the same issues as the rest of us. So I don't quite understand why Starmer did what he did with regard to the Muslim vote.
Let's have a look at what the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood said about the attack today, Gary. Here she is.
The government has stepped up security at synagogues across the whole of the country, and we will do whatever is required to keep our Jewish community safe. I know that there are many questions that are still to be answered, and rest assured they will be answered as quickly as possible. It will just take a little time for us to establish exactly what has happened here, but we will share more information as soon as we are able to.
Is that reassuring to you, Gary, to hear that?
Well, those are great words, but we want to see actions. And we've seen great words in the past when there have been anti-Semitic incidents, and we haven't seen action. And more people in the Jewish community are in despair, I think that's the right word to use, despair, about the inability or the lack of will on the part of the government to actually do anything about the problem of Jew hatred in the United Kingdom.
OK, Gary, my sympathies personally from me, and I share your frustrations. We've seen protests, pro-Palestinian protests in London every single weekend for getting on to 2 years now, and there was a sense that something was inevitably at some point going to happen. Gary Mond there, Chairman of the National Jewish Assembly, thank you so much for joining me on a very important day. Let me know your thoughts at home, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. I'm joined in the studio by my panel this evening, former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner. Niall, good evening, and foreign correspondent Sarah Furr. Thank you both, guys, for joining me. Now, of course, you are both British, but you live here in Washington, DC. Niall, your response when you heard this story first break today here, what were your initial reactions?
Well, absolutely horrifying, but not surprising with the huge rise in anti-Semitism in the UK and the weakness of Keir Starmer's government. We are seeing absolutely horrific, horrendous scenes in Manchester today. We have to prevent further attacks like this. The reality is, I think that Britain is becoming unrecognisable. There's a real culture of fear within the UK. Large numbers of Jews in Britain are thinking of leaving the country. I think that the state of affairs in Britain today is absolutely horrific.
Well, this area, as I alluded to at the beginning of the show, this attack was literally the spot between where I lived and where I went to school in North Manchester. And when I was growing up, it was very much a predominantly Jewish area. If you said to people who lived in Prestwich, people would say, "Oh, are you Jewish?" That was the normal response, and I'm not Jewish. But it changed very much in the last sort of 20, 25 years. Much more immigration, more Muslims living in the area, and literally on the border of these two regions of Prestwich and Crumpsall, where this attack was. So they have lived compatibly, the Jewish and the Islam community. They have lived there relatively peacefully for years. So I do wonder what's changed, Sarah, to create this something as awful as this in 2025?
Well, I mean, we heard the Prime Minister speaking there. You know, he's spoken about the fact that there has been this rise in anti-Semitism, and Bev, not just in the UK, here in the United States as well. It's been interesting to watch the response tonight across the US. You've had the NYPD come out and say they've increased the police presence around synagogues, even though there's no links or threat at this moment to anywhere in New York. They have responded, and I think that really shows the sort of global connection between the Jewish communities, both sides of the Atlantic, really rallying around and calling now for exactly what we heard there, more action from the Prime Minister. Words in this instance aren't enough. There has been this rise in anti-Semitism, and I think the communities tonight, particularly in Manchester, Bev, they're going to be asking questions about what is going to be done, because words won't protect them. They want to see strong measures for their safety.
In the absence of a strong leader, Niall, I think you're absolutely right, actually. In the absence of a strong leader, I always think of countries like a family. And so you've got the father figure at the top. And for all of the faults that people may see with Donald Trump, and people do, of course, he is like a very strong disciplinarian kind of father figure, and there's an irony in which it makes people feel safe. People feel safe, as they do in a family, they do in a country, if they have a leader that they think puts down firm boundaries and has their best interests at heart. This sense in the UK at the moment of not having somebody who has the best interests, it's like being a child in a dysfunctional family in a way. That's what I know exactly what you mean. If this happened here, or under Trump's watch, if something similar was to happen, Niall, What would he do?
I think there would be a far, far stronger response, actually. I mean, President Trump's a real leader. Keir Starmer is not. And listening to Keir Starmer's comments today, very weak-kneed, but also hugely hypocritical. And this is a Prime Minister who just a couple of weeks ago was calling for the recognition of a Palestinian state, which is a key demand, of course, of Hamas. And I think that President Trump's response to an incident like this would be completely different to that of Keir Starmer. You would see real action being taken. But Starmer is just full of empty rhetoric, and at the same time, of course, he's undermining the Jewish community with support, of course, for the Palestinian movement. It's an absolute disgrace. I mean, I do think Keir Starmer should be ashamed of himself today, actually. And you have a Prime Minister who, in my view, is the weakest British Prime Minister of the modern era.
I'm going to have a look at what the viewers are saying at home as well, because I think there's quite a few people actually, Niall, echoing what you were just saying there about the fact that they feel like there is no clear leadership, and actually that what they are frustrated by is these images we just saw of Keir Starmer with his Jewish cap on this evening in the ceremony. I mean, his wife admittedly is Jewish, but the viewers are saying it's just tokenistic, it's too little too late. The Jewish people have not felt that he is on their side. Sarah, is it the right thing for him to do tonight, to go to a service, a religious Jewish service?
I think there's no question that is an act of solidarity that people will want to see. You know, his wife is Jewish, and you also, you know, it's the holiest day, Yom Kippur, it's the holiest day for Jews. So you had so many people in the aftermath of this terror attack. You know, their phones were off, they'd been fasting all morning. It's a really holy day about community, and so they were just learning of that as the news broke. I think what people will want to see in the community, though, and remember, Manchester has been here before. They've suffered that horrific arena attack.
Ariana Grande, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being there reporting, I'm sure you remember it, being from the area. The way the community came together then was remarkable. It was a real sign of resilience and strength. I think what the community already are calling for, you've heard from people there in Manchester, Jews in the community in Manchester, saying they want to see some action now taken, concrete measures that will secure their safety, because the warnings have been there. We heard it from the police in their press statement earlier, saying that, look, it wasn't completely out of the blue. This wasn't a surprise. So that sense that this had been long coming, I think is worrying, and people are going to want to see what happens now, what actions are going to be taken.
Heather gets in touch at home and she says, Bev, your guests are British living in the US, they're not Americans, so why does this government give the attacker the title of being British? He came here in 2006 from Syria, he is not British. Right, thank you both for that. Still to come tonight.
Based on what we know, counter-terrorism policing has declared this as a terrorist incident.
We'll get more reaction from both sides of the Atlantic to the horrific terror attack of people peacefully going about their day. It's rocked Britain, of course, today. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point.
Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. Just let's return to our breaking news this evening. Police have declared that this morning's attack on a Manchester synagogue was a terrorist incident. 2 worshippers are dead, 4 more are in hospital, and within minutes the suspect was shot dead by police. Tonight that suspect has been named as 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami. The Home Office has also confirmed to GB News that the attacker was a British national of Syrian descent who entered the UK as a child and was granted citizenship to the UK in 2006 as a minor. Let's go to London now to former Special Advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrop, who joins us from our London studio. Oscar, good evening to you. You've got the papers there. We don't have the physical copies here. We're obviously looking at them online, but presumably all the front pages are dedicated to this hideous attack.
Absolutely every single one of them. There is only one story in town, and I have to say, across the political spectrum, I mean, you know, we even have The Guardian. We have The Guardian on the left in this country with a big front page and a leader comment saying this attack is a tragic wake-up call for Britain. And then The Telegraph, which for your US viewers is probably more to the right politically. I think probably the most troubling front page for Keir Starmer here in the UK, which is that Israel blames Starmer for synagogue terror rampage. And politically, that puts Keir Starmer in a very, very, very difficult situation here in the UK. I mean, he spoke today in the UK of his shock and the shocking nature of this attack, but it doesn't require a particularly thorough, long memory to go back to the aftermath of October 7th in this country, where missing posters of Israeli victims and hostages were torn down in the streets of the UK, where people celebrated the actions of Hamas. In the immediate aftermath, schools in North London with large Jewish populations had to close. This was in the days after October 7th. And so for him to say he's shocked beggars belief. And then when you talk to the security services, the Jewish community, above all, which is, I think, tragically haven't been listened to here in this country, they're not shocked by this attack. Of course, there's a shocking nature to it, but this has been coming, and that is dark as it gets.
Oscar, as somebody that worked in and around Number 10, what happens in these situations behind the scenes? I believe Keir Starmer held a Cobra meeting this afternoon, didn't he?
He flew back from Europe. He spends a lot of his time there, so I think he recognised politically he had to fly back immediately. He held a Cobra meeting, again the right thing to do under these circumstances. Now there's been we've been promised here in this country extra police protection around synagogues. I mean, to be saying that out loud is just so entirely depressing, but you know, that is good, I guess. He then gave an address today which I think probably well-intentioned but was slightly odd. I thought it was quite us and you know, the country and you, as in the Jewish community. Like the Jewish community in places like Manchester and Liverpool, they're like us. They don't. It's not. So I think unintentionally it was quite an othering statement in many ways. And the other thing that we have here, Beth, which is, I mean, look, terrorist acts in the UK used to be met with unity and dismay, and now there are chunky sections of the population in this country that are celebrating, and we have pro-Palestinian. And the Met Police here in London have come out and there've been arrests, there've been assaults of police officers. You know, there is aggression on the streets tonight of all nights, and that is deeply, deeply dark and depressing.
Let's have a look at what Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham said about this today. Oscar, here he is.
Greater Manchester will never stand aside when one of our communities is attacked. We ask everyone to show solidarity to the Jewish community this weekend, and already we've mobilised through our interfaith network messages of support and solidarity through places of worship. We always will stand together here in Greater Manchester, and we will never let acts that are designed to cause hatred, division in our communities, violence, we will never let them succeed. And that's our message tonight to everybody across Greater Manchester. Do not let them succeed. Respond by reaching out, by redoubling efforts to work together and stand together in these difficult times.
So it's very difficult for Andy Burnham, the mayor there, on an evening like this. All you can do is call for people to come together when the city is frankly just divided beyond belief.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I know it's easy to be cynical when at times, depending on your political allegiances, when high-profile politicians come out these moments. But it is absolutely essential that they show that unity above all, and there's a calmness there, and a calmness mixed with seriousness for the situation that, I have to say, only really holds true and can be impactful when it's met with action. I mean, I have Jewish friends in North London. I have Jewish family in East London. I wouldn't presume to know, but I imagine that when we see the pro-Palestinian marches around the UK, up and down the land, tonight of all nights, they will be fearful. They will be even more fearful than they were already. And I think we need to start having conversations where our senior politicians, and of course, you defend protest, but there is clearly an element within these protests that are unable to separate their hatred of Jews from their, wrongly or rightly, their perceived dismay at the actions of an Israeli government. So there is Jew hating on the streets of Britain tonight and today.
Yeah. OK, Oscar, thank you so much. Oscar Redder up there. We'll be back with you a little bit later. I'm still in the studio here with former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and foreign correspondent Sarah Firth. This idea, Niall, that actually Hamas, if they were to accept this deal in the Middle East, could just end these tensions which still exist in the US and in the UK, we've got no sign of them wanting to do that. If you're ideologically driven to destroy a group of people, in which case Hamas would happily destroy all Jewish people, how are they going to accept any sort of deal? Do you think they will?
Well, that's a great question. There's no sign that Hamas will accept the deal. I mean, they're an evil, monstrous bunch of barbarians, really. And that's what we're dealing with. My view is that, the war only ends when Hamas is completely and emphatically defeated and destroyed. And I think that, Benjamin Netanyahu has had absolutely the right approach towards Hamas, which is there has to be complete and total victory over the enemy. That's the only way you guarantee safety, actually.
Sarah, go on.
Yeah, I have to say, Bev, I mean, listening to the former advisor to Boris Johnson there, I'm not sure. Oscar, yeah. Sorry, Oscar, but it's not the time to be scoring political points. I mean, I've been reporting at many of those pro-Palestinian marches, and I think it just needs to be said again in this moment when tensions are so high. Protesting against Israeli government policies is not the same as anti-Semitism. Now, there is no question that you have anti-Semitic individuals, slogans, banners at some of these marches, and we will see that in the coming days, and that should be absolutely outright condemned. But tonight, there will be families grieving in Manchester. The police have been absolutely unequivocal that this is an anti-Semitic attack. I think it's just really important that at this moment of high tensions, not to make these political points that we don't necessarily know all the details of this at the moment. And I think
I'm going to jump in to disagree with you, Sarah. And I think what Oscar was saying was absolutely right. It's an absolute disgrace. You see these pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas mobs on the streets of London and many cities tonight.
But now, can I ask you, have you been in those protests reporting?
Well, I've actually encountered these protesters on the streets of London, very violent people. And there are a lot of sick individuals out there who are voicing support for Hamas and the pro-Palestinian cause. My former boss, Margaret Thatcher, frankly, would have banned these protests because they are anti-Semitic protests. They're violent. A lot of these individuals are calling for the death of Jews and Israelis, and so these are not peaceful protests. These are very aggressive, violent demonstrations. Actually,
I think the rhetoric is strong now.
We should be using the full force of the law against these individuals. Zero tolerance for anti-Semitism.
And
for those who are calling for for death to the IDF. These people should be prosecuted, put on trial.
Politics. You're making it about politics.
It's not about politics.
It's not about politics. Now, I think is very difficult in a moment of high tension.
This is all about actually standing up to evil and barbarism on the streets of Great Britain. And we have to be very crystal clear about the nature of the enemy that we face here.
But the nature of the enemy in this situation is Jihad al-Shami, the 35-year-old man, British man of Syrian descent, who carried out this attack. And the police are still investigating this. You've got 3 people tonight being held on terror charges that are going to be questioned. We simply, at this moment in time, do not know that this was ideologically driven, what the background is, what the motivations are. I just think it's very important, especially Manchester is so multicultural. We saw in the aftermath of the Manchester Arena bombing an absolute refusal to let this kind of rhetoric and division take hold in the community.
Sarah,
the communities really came
there are some
together
very evil, ideologically driven people who hate Jews, who hate Christians, who hate Britain as well. This is the real issue right now. It's the enemy within in the United Kingdom. Unless we're going to take them on and defeat them, there will no longer be a Great Britain anymore.
There is no question anti-Semitism is global. Here in the US, they're struggling to deal with it as well. I just think this is about protecting Jewish communities right now, not pointing fingers of blame before we have all the information.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because obviously as the television media, GB News has had to be incredibly careful all day. We still have to be careful, actually, as you say, to adhere to the known verified facts about this case. And on social media, there was a bit of an outcry when Keir Starmer came and made his statement and didn't just slam Islam or even fundamentalist Islam. He didn't mention it. And that, I guess, to your point, is that he obviously, and also is restricted in terms of what we can and can't say because there will be an active case going on. He obviously feels like you. This is not the time to make political capital out of it. And I think what you're saying, Niall, is if not now, when? If we don't take these instances and extrapolate them to the bigger picture to work out what is happening on the streets of the UK and America, then how do we ever iron out these differences?
Absolutely, and we have to defend our civilization. It's under attack. This is a war that we're engaged in right now, and we've got to win.
Whereas you say focus on the individual.
I'm saying I think Niall's misidentified the enemy potentially. The enemy here is anti-Semitism clearly, and that's something that's very, very difficult to target, to eradicate, and it's something that the UK government needs to be focused very hard on right now.
I think we know who the enemy is, Sarah.
Steps. OK, thank you both. We're going to pick this up after a very quick break. Still to come tonight on The Late Show Live.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses.
Well, bombshell new research, it's not what he's talking about then, but thematically it's still the same, proves what a lot of people have been noticing, that TV's obsession with diversity is leaving some people underrepresented. We're going to discuss that in just a minute, and also tonight.
Just be you.
Just be me?
Yep. When you're trying to decide, think about all the things you like to do. Just be you.
Just be me.
There are growing calls for a Netflix boycott. Good luck doing that in your house if you've got kids. Anyway, this is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. See you in a minute.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as
I and now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
That is a crowd of pro-Palestinian protesters at a train station in London this evening. They're back on the streets tonight, just hours, of course, after a terror attack targeted the synagogue in Manchester. Was that appropriate? Let me know. We're going to be speaking to somebody who was at those protests very shortly. We're going to have a look as well at some of the newspaper front pages, and my panel are still with me. Niall and Sarah are here with me until 2 a.m. or 9 p.m. here in Washington. The front pages in Manchester tell the story tonight. The Manchester Evening News, it used to land on my mat through the front door every night growing up. It's a superb local newspaper, and they are leading with grief and anger on Yom Kippur this evening. Of course, the community absolutely devastated by this attack on such an important day. The Telegraph is reporting that Israel has accused Sir Keir Starmer of failing to curb a toxic wave of anti-Semitism. And the picture on the front there, of course, of a young girl being hugged, presumably by her mother, in North Manchester today. The Daily Mail reporting that the suspected Manchester attacker was an Islamic terrorist. That's what the Mail reporting, with "was" in capital letters read. I think it was the Daily Mail that have gone first with that. And Little John commentator inside as well, saying who he sees as partly responsible for these deaths. The Times is reporting that counter-terrorist police are on heightened alert to potential copycats following the Manchester synagogue attack. Of course, what we don't know at the moment is whether this killer was on any sort of watch list. It looks like initial reports are that he wasn't. We're going to be looking at that in just a minute. And the I newspaper tonight highlighting the bravery of the rabbi and the worshippers, credited with saving many lives in the face of the synagogue terror attack. The footage was extraordinary, actually, and I don't know whether you both saw it. Oh, we're going to go on to the American papers. Have a look on the American papers here as well. Sorry, USA Today is reporting that President Donald Trump's winning streak at the Supreme Court is about to get tested as justices start deciding on the fate of Trump's policies in the Supreme Court. Let me just ask my panel. Supreme Court, that isn't sitting at the moment, is it, because of the government shutdown?
That is a very good question, Bev, and I will get back to you.
I don't think it is. I think he might have a bit of a delay on that. They're coming back on October the 6th, apparently, I've just been told by somebody who's very quick on Google. And the New York Post leads on a completely different story this evening. They're reporting that a wealthy couple is looking to build an indoor pool in the cellar of their posh residence, but are facing resistance from their neighbours who want to halt the construction. May I ask you both, does that mean it's a slow news day in New York?
Little bit.
That's an extraordinary front page, isn't it, of a newspaper?
Yeah, it is, actually, yes.
Sarah, as a journalist?
They've got no space in New York. Real estate is crazy, so I'm not surprised that's causing tensions.
Remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, let me know your thoughts this evening, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. Let's go back to former Special Advisor to Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrop, from our London studio to discuss more of these papers. We talked, Oscar, about the fact that the Manchester story is obviously front and centre of all of these particular newspapers. We're still trying to assess the situation here in terms of who this man was. We know that he came over from Syria as a young person. We don't know the circumstances under which he came over here. The Telegraph is very interesting, though, saying that Israel is accusing Sir Keir Starmer of failing to curb a toxic wave of anti-Semitism. No doubt he will hit back very strongly at that allegation.
Yeah, it puts the Prime Minister in an awkward spot. It truly does. I'd imagine that the recognition of Palestinian state a couple of weeks ago probably fuels Israel's reaction today a little bit more. But also, as we were saying earlier before the break, the immediate reaction in parts of this country after October the 7th, Jewish schools having to close, missing posters, in the UK of Jewish victims being torn down, and it's important, particularly at times like this, and I acknowledge that, not to overcook things too much, but when we look back then and we look tonight as well, here in the UK, an element of Hamas, particularly if you think back to kind of October 8th, 9th in this country, Hamas supporting chanting. Israel will probably think that our Prime Minister here has been too weak in protecting Jews in this country. And, you always have the best intentions, and I will remain politically agnostic in this moment, despite having worked for someone like Boris Johnson. Obviously, I'm not a natural huge fan of someone like Keir Starmer, but here in the UK, he went to a synagogue in North London with his wife, who is Jewish, and he took a lot of the high-profile members of his cabinet in a show of solidarity. People can get very cynical about that, because it is in some ways performative, but it will be felt, and it will be meant, and it is important. But
I'm just thinking, Oscar, I just also want to make a mention of how remarkable the police officers were today. Just incredible. I mean, I was trying to work out where the police station is from there. There is a large police station. In fact, there used to be when I grew up just down the road from there, but it's actually apartments now. But I'm pretty sure there is one of the central Manchester police stations isn't that far from there. But to get armed officers there in such a short space of time, I think it was about 7 minutes, and they had this guy on the ground. All credit to them, Oscar.
Yeah, spot on. And if you watch the footage, if you've seen the footage of the response from the police, it is truly heroic. And they're pushing back people who have gathered to see what's going on. And then also we have here the Eye newspaper in the UK, which I think is one of the best front pages at times like this, which really centres on the bravery of the rabbi and the worshippers. Literally blocking the door. I mean, you can't put into words, and most regular human beings will not understand the courage, and well, hopefully you won't have to as a human being know how you would react in that situation. The countless lives that were saved there. So in these incredibly dark times, there are heroes made, and clearly fellow worshippers at the synagogue and the rabbi are heroes made today in the UK.
OK, Oscar, thank you so much. We'll be back with you in just a little while. I'm just looking at Benjamin Netanyahu called the deadly rampage a barbaric attack. He says Israel was grieving with the Jewish community in Britain. Our hearts are with the families of the murdered, and we pray for the swift recovery of the wounded. And he says, Netanyahu says, as I warned at the UN, weakness in the face of terrorism only brings more terrorism. Only strength and unity can defeat it, which was the sentiment that you were saying earlier, Niall, wasn't it, of course? And it's also worth just drawing attention to this rabbi, as Oscar said there, Daniel Walker. He blocked the entrance because, of course, the synagogue was packed on Yom Kippur. And he closed the doors. It's in Heaton Park, and he closed the doors and kept all those, presumably a couple of hundred people at least in there, safe. This could have been so much worse, Sarah.
I mean, the heroism behind that, I think, it's just absolutely remarkable. The terrorist who carried out this attack, ramming the synagogue with the car, he had a knife, he had something that was attached to him that there were concerns that it was a suicide belt of some kind. In that moment, the reaction from the rabbi, from the people who helped him inside to hold off the attacker in that way. And then, as you said, Bev, from the police with that incredible response time, 7 minutes from the call to getting there and the attacker dead.
Yeah. Right, we'd love to hear from you this evening at gbnews.com/your say. Still to come on The Late Show Live.
Just be you.
Just be me?
Yep. When you're trying to decide, think about all the things you like to do. Just be you.
Just be me.
So Netflix is causing controversy, and people are being encouraged to stop their subscriptions. We'll tell you why in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev, on GB News, live from Washington, D.C., of course. Now, new research has found that UK advertisers are disproportionately overrepresenting black people in TV commercials, whilst pensioners and the disabled are forgotten about. So has this overrepresentation tipped the scales of equality? Niall and Sarah are here with me to have this conversation. Niall, it's something that a lot of people have noticed. Now, there is a phrase in advertising, you have to see it to be it. And there's no doubt that there has been a generation that weren't reflected in advertising, particularly young black children just didn't feature in advertising. But now we're seeing that maybe it's gone too far. Is that an inappropriate phrase to use?
Well, I think that's certainly the view of many viewers who do think that sort of DEI policies have gone too far in advertising in the UK. Advertising really should reflect the country as a whole. And I think that rightly many British viewers feel that traditional Britain, as it were, has been abandoned upon the altar of political correctness and DEI, woke policies, basically. So I think that they're very legitimate concerns and complaints over this.
Sarah? I mean, I think disability in the UK, people with disabilities make up, I think it's around a quarter of the population, if I'm not mistaken. But, huge numbers of people, that's simply not reflected in advertising. And, advertising, as you guys have touched on, it doesn't just sell products, right? It's about shifting cultural norms, expectations. As you said, you have to see it to be it. it affects how society sees in particular disability. So it's hugely important. And this has been an issue for years and years and years. Advertisers, quite frankly, are lagging behind because they have the market there with so many people who want to see themselves represented.
And it's not just advertising, it's also television. I had a conversation with an agent recently who looks after sports presenters, and she some really big names, and she said female sports presenters, Bev, had a 20-year window between the year 2000 and 2020. And 2000 actually was when I started in telly, and I was doing sports at the time. And she said, and then in 2020, white women were no longer requested by the channels at all. Black women, yes. Asian women, yes. Disabled women, actually, also good. And yet, white women, that's it. I've missed my window. Anyway, let me know what you think, won't you? gbnews.com/your say. Still to come in the next hour, I'm going to bring you the very latest news emerging out of Manchester tonight. First, though, time for a quick break.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Anti-Semitic terror on the streets of the UK will have the reaction here in America. Breaking details on The Late Show Live tonight.
He's got bombs on him.
Just 7 minutes, but it brought terror back to Britain's streets.
Earlier today, on Yom Kippur, the holiest day for the Jewish community, a vile individual committed a terrorist attack that attacked Jews because they are Jews.
Tonight, a warning from the Prime Minister. Hatred is on the rise in Britain and it cannot be ignored. And in more breaking news, the attacker has been named as 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami. I'll tell you a little more about his identity shortly. But the repercussions are being felt here in Washington, D.C. too this evening, and the questions are being asked now. Does Britain need armed policing like the National Guard that we see here on the streets of D.C.? Could that kind of visible force have prevented the attack? Do you want to see armed police on your streets elsewhere tonight?
You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID.
The Prime Minister's plan for digital ID is already in trouble. New research showing that support has collapsed within days of the announcement. And do you know what's going on here? Stick with us. I'm going to bring you some shocking footage emerging from LaGuardia Airport in New York. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live, and welcome to the second hour. The stories get faster. The brakes have been dropped. Don't go anywhere. Make sure you get in touch with me this evening, won't you? gbnews.com/your say, or this morning if you're watching over in the UK. Niall and Sarah are going to stay with me as well between now and 2 a.m. But let's return to this evening's breaking news. Police have declared that this morning's attack on a Manchester synagogue was a terrorist incident. 2 worshippers are dead, 4 more remain in hospital, and within minutes, of course, the suspect was shot dead by police. Tonight, that suspect has been named as 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami. And the Home Office has also confirmed to GB News that the attacker was a British national of Syrian descent who entered the UK as a child and was granted British citizenship in 2006 whilst he was still a minor. And in more breaking news tonight, pro-Palestinian protesters have taken to the streets of London where they've been seen clashing with police and chanting "Death to the IDF." Chanting death to the IDF, the Israeli Defence Force, of course, an anti-Semitic protest by any other definition. It's also being reported tonight that police have asked organisers of a pro-Palestine action protest to postpone this weekend so that resources can be used to protect Jewish and Muslim communities. But Defend Our Juries, which has been organising the protests in London, says that it intends to go ahead with its action on Saturday, adding that it is up to the Met whether or not it prioritises arrests. Let's get the take of American Conservative talk show host and commentator Steve Gill. Steve, thank you so much for joining me here on The Late Show Live in Washington, D.C. It's good to see you. It's a shame it's under these sorts of circumstances. As an American, when you look over in the UK and you see this sort of trouble on our streets leading to a terrorist attack of Jews on one of the most important days on their calendar, what's your initial reaction?
You know, as horrific and as tragic as this incident is, attacking the attendees at the synagogue, I'm frankly more appalled and at the risk of being arrested by a constable in London for hate speech. Who goes on the streets and protests in favor of murder in the wake of this kind of horrific accident and tragedy? This wasn't an accident. This is going to happen again. And the people on the streets protesting in favor of murder, in favor of terrorism, that's the real tragedy here, and I don't know how England and London reverses it.
Do you think, Steve, that we should have stronger policies to clamp down on those sorts of protests, or as a country that's always being criticised at the moment for clamping down on free speech, maybe those protesters have a right to go and have their voices heard, particularly when they're commentating on Middle Eastern politics?
You know, there's an issue of Middle Eastern politics, and in my view, you can criticize the Israeli government and Israeli policies, but when you're fomenting murder and terrorism, it's akin to shouting fire in a crowded theater. You're moving from voices to action, and I think that's the the real problem here. And you raised the issue earlier of, is it time for police or soldiers in London to be armed? You know, I often tell people here in the US that when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And in this case, they were only 7 minutes away. But how much more carnage could have taken place in that 7 minutes where police are not armed, police are not present, and even more accessible than they were in this case. I mean, again, great work by the police in responding so quickly. But again, when seconds count, the police are minutes away.
This attacker used a car. It's very common in Europe, actually, to use a vehicle as a weapon in that way for these particular terrorist attacks, mainly because we don't have the same guns. We have very, very few guns, as you know, in the UK, and it's actually very rare for the police to carry them as well. It's very rare for them to have to carry them because these incidents are luckily so rare. But do you think, Steve, having seen what's happened here, I don't actually know where you're based, which state you're in, but I've noticed in Washington, the National Guard on the streets, armed National Guard, as a pedestrian, as a woman, it does make you feel very safe.
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee, and as you know, President Trump has seen the success of what's happened in Washington, D.C., where the crime rates, the murder rates, the thefts, the robberies, the carjackings have plummeted to almost zero. He has now dispatched the National Guard to Memphis, Tennessee, just about 3 hours drive west of me, where they arrived literally in the last 24 hours. Memphis has become the #1 murder capital in the U.S., and I think we're going to see the same kind of results that we've seen in Washington, D.C., where safety will return. Bev, my concern in both Washington and Memphis is what happens when the National Guard leaves. I mean, the thugs, the criminals, the gangbangers, they don't disappear. They've gone underground. Will they come back? Now, in the meantime, they're arresting and in some cases deporting a lot of these vile characters. But will crime stay low when the National Guard leaves?
What do you think empowers, we can use Islamic terrorists, I think in this case, the Daily Mail in the UK is leading with saying that he was an Islamic terrorist. We haven't had that confirmed by the police at this stage. But what empowers people with those murderous ideologies to feel that they are free to commit such atrocities?
You know, again, at the risk of being arrested by some constable from London, I mean, first of all, this guy's name is Jihadi. That ought to be a red flag. Second, when you have people that are protesting against, you know, their daughters being raped or accosted or murdered, and they get arrested and charged rather than those who are promoting the violence, again, that we're seeing on the streets of London tonight. When you embolden violence, when you embrace terrorism as something that you can accept, you're going to get more of it. And I think we saw, I think it was in the Netherlands, where, you know, a girl with an axe trying to protect her sister was charged rather than the guy that was trying to grope and harass and follow them. We are completely out of whack with reality. And I think that's why you're seeing people in London, people throughout Europe, people in the US push back.
Thanks, Steve, so much for joining us. Conservative talk show host and commentator there, Steve Gill. Let's also get the take of journalist Jack Hadfield, who was at those pro-Palestine marches in London this evening. Jack, thank you so much. How was it? What was the atmosphere like at these marches tonight?
Yeah, well, at the start, it was almost a bit of a party atmosphere. I could see some people, again, commentating on Twitter that they said that they thought the same thing, and I would agree. There was lots of loud noises, lots of people chanting things. Obviously, as I said, I got the footage of them chanting "Death to the IDF," which obviously has become quite a regular chant at these protests now. But when the police put in the cordon, that's when it started to get a little bit more violent, with the protesters at one point breaking through the police line, resulting in multiple arrests after they placed Section 12 and Section 14 orders from the Public Order Act on the protest to make them disperse. But yeah, there were, again, probably 1,000 people, I would estimate, out on the street tonight. I believe it was organised at first due to the arrest of the flotilla in Gaza, obviously including people like Greta Thunberg. But there are certainly people out there tonight as well who very specifically wanted to make a message with what was happening, with what had happened this morning in Manchester. Well, I saw one person hold a sign saying that people aren't political models. So there are clearly people who came out knowing what happened in Manchester this morning and not going out in despite of it, but because of it.
Jack, I remember seeing some of these initial protests when Netanyahu started to really enact his revenge, punishment, or however you want to name it, after 7th of October. The crowd at that time, I was surprised as I came through London. Some of them were white, middle-aged, middle-class, probably members of the National Trust who had their rucksacks on their back, and they just seemed like the kind of people that wouldn't normally go out. I think as a couple of years has gone along, those people have sort of ebbed away now, and we're left with quite a hardcore group of protesters. And I'm struck always by how many of them cover up their faces. And what was it like? See, we're seeing some of the pictures here. What was your impression of the sort of the demographic of the protesters, if you like, tonight? Who are they now?
Well, I do think there are still some of the classic white middle-class lefties who will turn up to things, pro-Palestine marches, stand up to racism, etc. But no, you're definitely right. There has been a growing cadre of radical activists massed up. Many people there were massed up on the streets of London today. Again, because they don't want to hide their faces, because they don't want their opinions known, especially, again, if they're chanting things such as death to the IDF. You probably get fired for that. So they mask up for a reason, and there's definitely a younger audience, students, and of course people from minority ethnic backgrounds as well. I heard lots of chants in Arabic languages, not just calling for intifada, but again, full Arabic phrases on the streets of London. So, and I'd certainly the people who are organising it, lots of them in Islamic headdress, for example. So there definitely is getting to be a more radical faction of those taking up a larger percentage of the protesters.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you so much. That was the journalist Jack Hadfield, who was down at those marches this evening. I just want to get a quick word from my panel as we look at these pictures. Sarah, does it make you miss London, seeing that? I mean, I've slightly got my tongue in my cheek, but it's febrile, the atmosphere.
It is. Look, whether we like it or not, even in these moments, the right to protest, it's a democratic right that is protected in Britain. It's one of the pillars of what we are as British people. And I think it's important to note the police do have powers, particularly in this moment when tensions are so high. When that line is crossed into hate speech, into incitement for violence, they are absolutely right to be carrying out arrests. And you'd hope that that would be being policed very, very closely tonight.
And it sounds like they did use that dispersal order in the end. Niall, do you despair when you see pictures like that on the streets of London?
Yeah, I do, because you've got a lot of hate-filled individuals, a lot of them deeply anti-British, I think, as well. Of course, they hate Israel, they hate Jews, they no doubt hate Christians as well. And I think this is the dark side of Britain at this time. And this is not about freedom of speech. People have the right to freely demonstrate, protest. They do not have the right, of course, to call for death to the IDF or support Hamas or support terrorist organisations. A lot of those individuals on the streets today should be arrested. Some of them, foreign nationals, should be deported. What are they doing in Britain in the first place, frankly? And I think we need to see really tough tactics against these pro-terror individuals on the streets of London. And a lot of these masked individuals, there should be a ban on wearing masks, actually.
Well, it's funny
anyone wearing a mask there should be, be arrested. What are they hiding?
That's exactly what our audience is saying at home, actually, on the Your Say site. Why are they allowing them to cover up their faces like that? Here says Catherine. She says, still the police allowing them to cover their faces. That's down to weak policing, and these protesters know it. But then I am also torn because, like you, there is a part of me that thinks in the moments of tension we have to be careful about the freedoms that we give away.
I agree, and I think also it's just worth remembering, I know everyone feels very strongly about this, you know, it's a hugely tense moment in time given what's happened, but to come back to the pro-Palestinian marches, it just needs to be said again, you know, protesting against Israeli government politics is not the same as anti-Semitism, and when we conflate the two in the way that often happens in moments of tension like this, you are weakening the fight against anti-Semitism.
They're definitely conflated, absolutely. And those people on the streets, you can be sure, a lot of them are anti-Semitic. Of course, they hate Israel, they hate Jewish people, and also they hate Britain, frankly. If you went out there waving a Union Jack, you'd probably be attacked by this nasty, vicious mob, actually. That's what we're dealing with here. On really barbaric people who hate Western civilization and everything that we stand for. I don't know what they're doing on the streets of London, masked up and so on, and the police doing nothing. In fact, frankly, a lot of them should be deported from the country.
No, making that accusation about a whole group of people, Brits on the streets, expressing their democratic right to
a lot of these people dressed up as Arabs and so on, they should be deported from the UK.
But I think
what are they doing in Britain in the first place?
It adds to the division. The police have the powers in our country, thankfully, to step in when the line is crossed at these protests.
And they need a lot more
whether
power
it's a pro-Palestinian protest or the pro-UK protest, whatever.
There should be zero tolerance for supporters of terrorism. It's as simple as that, actually.
And we do have protections in place. The police will step in if the line is crossed.
How many of these masked mobs are being arrested?
But that's free speech. Thankfully, we have the protections in our country as British people.
It's not free speech to support Hamas and call for death to the IDF.
Right, and incitement to violence
that's not free
hate
speech.
Should
this is what they're doing.
be condemned.
This is what they're doing tonight.
Happens, you'd hope the police are doing that on the streets.
Well, I didn't see anyone being arrested tonight. What are the police actually doing here? There should be zero tolerance for this. And I do think a lot of these individuals, frankly, out on the streets of London, protesting on a day when Jewish people were brutally killed in Manchester, these are sick individuals, actually, really completely sick people. And there should be, zero tolerance for these kinds of
a terror attack
these
in our
kinds
country.
of barbarians.
Absolutely,
they are barbarians. Yeah.
But I do think that you need to be careful when it comes to at the heart of our democracy is the protection of freedom of speech. If you don't like what one march is doing, now if you enact what you've been calling for, then when it's marches that happen for something you agree with, that will also be targeted. So I think there is a discussion to be had about police powers in these instances, whether they have, as we've been discussing here in the US, you have an armed police response as a deterrent.
I don't see anyone
else
protesting in favour of terrorism, really. It's these pro-Palestinian mobs, pro-terrorist, pro-Hamas.
But that's conflation that risks division at an exact moment. Listen to what people in Manchester are saying tonight. They're calling for calm. They're calling for interfaith dialogue. They're calling for calm and not.
They're calling for security. They're calling for them
security,
to be,
which is absolutely a conversation you're going to expect the UK will be having
against
tonight.
Terrorists and supporters of terrorism, and we should be 100% clear about the enemy that we face here.
Right, we're going to talk about more of this in just a minute, guys, as well. I'm just having a look at what people are saying at home. Apparently, you're the problem, Sarah. Your female,
not the first time I've heard that, Bev.
Your female guest is part of the problem, says Beverly, another Beverly at home. Thank you. I think somebody called you a liberal progressive before, and I'm somewhere between the two. I can't lie. I despise these scenes on the streets of London. I despise the fact that it brings the city to a halt every weekend. I despise importing Middle Eastern politics into the UK, but then I also worry that we give away our freedoms in moments of panic, and who knows when we might need those freedoms. Right, still to come this evening, find out why there are growing calls for a Netflix boycott, but also tonight. Very powerful. And I don't know about you, Ellen, but I thought we'd reached sort of peak satire when the imprint on the sand had a police car. Bring you my exclusive conversation from this afternoon from the sunshine of Washington, DC, with Alan Miller of the Together Declaration. He tells us where the debate is up to on digital ID. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Yes, Storm Amy is going to arrive through today. It's going to bring damaging winds and heavy persistent rain, especially across northern parts. Further south, the weather's looking less impactful, and actually many places are starting the day with some quiet weather. But quite quickly, the heavy persistent rain across parts of Northern Ireland will feed its way eastward, so most places are going to turn pretty wet as we go through the afternoon. Also watch out for those strengthening winds, especially across northern parts. Now, temperatures on paper are going to be peaking in the mid to high teens Celsius, but with the rain, with the strong winds pushing in, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant for most of us. Then, as we go into this evening, that's when the winds are really going to start to strengthen, especially across parts of Scotland. There is an amber warning out for winds across northern and western Scotland. Here, damaging gusts could exceed 95 miles per hour, so some significant disruption is quite likely. Also staying windy, in fact increasingly windy across some parts of central eastern Scotland, northern England, parts of Wales and Northern Ireland as we go overnight, but the rain is pushing through. Further south, and like I said, actually yes, there will be some blustery wet weather here, but the weather doesn't look especially impactful. That being said, the rain's going to linger for a while across parts of the southeast as we go overnight. Other places will turn a bit drier across some parts of England and Wales with some clear skies, so temperatures could drop into single figures, but all the time as we go overnight it's staying very windy and it's going to be pretty wet as well across much of Scotland. Then as we go through tomorrow, a bit of a wet start in the southeast, but that band of rain clears away, and then really we are still heavily under the influence of Storm Amy. It's going to continue to bring strong winds, especially to the north, but it's looking like a windy day for most of us, and plenty of showers piling in from the northwest, and some of these could be heavy, could even be thundery. Fresher air pushing in and those strong winds making it feel pretty raw.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm very sorry the weather is so bad in the UK. I won't tell you what it's been like here in Washington, DC today. My panel, it's been lovely, hasn't it, guys? Yeah, it's been lovely.
Beautiful, beautiful weather.
It's been beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful all weekend as well. I feel a bit guilty. Right, moving on. Elon Musk is amongst high-profile names who've called for a boycott of Netflix. He said, cancel Netflix for the health of your kids. That's pretty unequivocal, isn't it? Now, this comes after clips of various children's programs have surfaced on social media with critics saying that the shows are pushing transgender propaganda and other LGBT themes. So here's a couple of them. Have a look at this.
I'm Frankie. Pronouns they, them. I'm only 15 days old. Hi, Claudine. She, her. Nice to meet ya.
I know that you guys are busy, but as you would see, if you looked at her and not her chart, Bailey is not a boy. And by treating her like one, you are completely ignoring who she is. You're making her feel insignificant and humiliated. And that's not gonna help her feel good or safe or calm. So, from here on out, please recognize her for who she is.
It's time for Brightball 101. Welcome to your crash course in holiday self-expression.
Just be you.
Just be me?
Yep. When you're trying to decide, think about all the things you like to do. Just be you.
Just be me.
Well, the panel here in the studio, I mean, we've all got our heads in our hands about that. That last one was two gay dads with a son just saying, just be you. Like, all right, maybe you think that's actually fine, but let's find out the opinion of Jamie Mitchell, founder and president of Gays Against Groomers, first of all. Jamie, good evening to you. First of all, what is the organisation Gays Against Groomers?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It's my first time on this network, and I'm happy to be here tonight. Gays Against Groomers is an organization of people from within the community, mostly we are gay individuals, fighting back against the sexualization, indoctrination, and medicalization of children happening in our name under the guise of LGBTQ+ rights and activism. We are against, you know, pride, shows for kids, drag for kids, the pornographic material that they put in these LGBTQ+ books. We're against indoctrinating children with these concepts of gender ideology. And above all else, we are against gender-affirming care for minors, which we would prefer to be referenced as child sterilization and mutilation, because that is what it is.
Jamie, I love you, and how can I not know you existed before tonight? Because I need you in my life, because as the mother of 3 teens, in fact one is in his early 20s now, I have been so incensed by how much it feels like the issue of sexuality and who you sleep with has been impressed upon my children from such a young age. Where is it coming from? Because I don't know about you, but I grew up, it just wasn't relevant. And you would encounter that journey in your own time, on your own terms.
That's exactly right, and that was always fine. You know, myself and everybody in Gays Against Groomers and every gay person alive that's like over 25 years old, we all grew up and figured out who we were naturally. We didn't have anything pushed on us. You know, it wasn't trendy to be part of some LGBTQ plus community. You know, there weren't outside forces shaping our opinions about who we are before we were even developed. And the fact that that's happening now is very scary, especially when that train leads to permanent sterilization and mutilation of young bodies who cannot consent. There's no possible way to consent as a child. And so it's very scary to see. And, you know, I think of myself, I see myself in these kids today. If I would have grown up just a few decades later, I 100% know that I would have been led to believe that I was born in the wrong body. And if my parents bought into this agenda, they too would have probably, you know, medicalized me and taken me down that permanent path.
You know, one area that I think doesn't get enough attention in this conversation, Jamie, is actually the role of pharmaceutical companies nudging the dial in this direction. Because even a cursory bit of research into this shows that actually transgender or sex gender reassignment procedures is one of the most profitable areas of the pharmaceutical industry. And I do wonder which of these programs, these TV shows are receiving funding, maybe, that might be proving, in the fullness of time, to end up drawing a bit of a profit for a drug company.
Oh, definitely. I think money is the root cause of all of this, especially when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry. You know, the gender industrial complex is loaded. They're loaded. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry and growing every single year. It's truly evil to profit off of anybody, especially though the most vulnerable and innocent among us who don't know any better. But yeah, I think money is obviously like a main motivator behind all of this, and it's sick. It's really sick.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much, Jamie. It's great to talk to you. I'd love you to come on again. I think we barely scratched the surface of what is a really important conversation there. So I'll see you again soon. But let's also speak to commentator Jeff Mead about this. Good evening, Jeff. Thank you as well for joining me. These Netflix shows, they are what are they doing? Are they just encouraging children to maybe just be themselves? We don't want to go back to the 70s where it wasn't okay to be gay, but I'm not sure we'll ever quite go back there, will we? So what are these programs doing?
Instilling confusion, I would say. I mean, for example, when you looked at the 2 fathers that were recently with that boy telling him to be himself, and he had it looked like a cap in one hand and a tiara in the other hand. It's like, why are we even making those things options? These kids don't know, like, you know, your brain really doesn't develop fully until you're 25 anyway. So really what they're doing is instilling confusion and actually harming children from, in many cases, developing into who they actually will be, and they will help them make decisions that they will regret later as they get older.
There was a time though, Jeff, when, as I say, it wasn't okay to be gay, and homophobia and hate attacks on gay people were the norm, and people couldn't be themselves. We don't live in that era now, do we? But so how do we make sure that it is okay for boys to feel that they can, I don't know, play with dolls if they want to, and not be completely emotionally oppressed, but also not encouraging this idea, because kids are very suggestible?
Well, I think one thing is leaving it up to the parents. And again, that, like, many of these shows are like rated for like 7-year-olds plus. So like, you know, they're talking about teenagers saying, I'm transgender, I'm this, I'm that. Why are we even introducing that idea to 7-year-olds? So I think it's a tough line to draw, but I think the best way is to leave that in the hands of the parents and how they want to raise their kids. But I don't think public institutions or companies should be putting those things into their products. But if they do want to put trans ideology into products for 7-year-olds, they should be ready to deal with the backlash that comes with that.
Yeah, and that backlash is, of course, what is being felt by Netflix. Do you think there are many parents who will take that warning seriously, though? Believe me, as a mother of teenagers, if I said we're cancelling the Netflix subscription because you might get, you might be sort of persuaded by the ideology of transgenderism, there'd be some massive fights in my house because those box sets on Netflix are very popular.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is they've gotten ingrained in there pretty well, but I think if, the public makes Netflix feel it enough, they'll react. And a lot of these, to be completely fair to Netflix, a lot of these things were done 2-3 years ago. They still done it, but they're just now surfacing because people are finding them. And now Netflix is essentially paying the price for what they decided to platform. And I think in a way they were caving to the woke mob when they did this.
Yeah, and there is a real anti-woke backlash. We're seeing it. You're right in the middle of it here in America. Not quite there yet in the UK. But great to see you, Jeff. Thank you so much. Commentator Jeff Mead there. We'll love to speak to you again. Now, in a statement to similar criticism in 2021, Netflix's COCE, Ted Sarandos, said, "It is impossible to please everybody, but we are trying to please a world that is made of people of different tastes, sensibilities and beliefs, and it becomes very difficult to do that for everyone." Co-CEO, sorry, I should have said. That was Ted Sarandos talking in 2021. Right, still to come on The Late Show Live. Now listen, the government are probably going to still try and push this through. What methods do you think they're going to use next? Because the idea that it would stop illegal migration has just frankly dissolved. We're going to hear from campaigner Alan Miller on why digital ID remains so controversial. Also, coming up, we're going to be looking at tomorrow's papers, including the Manchester Evening News and its coverage of the horrific terror attack. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Yes, Storm Amy is going to arrive through today. It's going to bring damaging winds and heavy persistent rain, especially across northern parts. Further south, the weather's looking less impactful, and actually many places are starting the day with some quiet weather. But quite quickly, the heavy persistent rain across parts of Northern Ireland will feed its way eastwards, so most places are going to turn pretty wet as we go through the afternoon. Also watch out for those strengthening winds, especially across northern parts. Now, temperatures on paper are going to be peaking in the mid to high teens Celsius, but with the rain, with the strong winds pushing in, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant for most of us. Then, as we go into this evening, that's when the winds are really going to start to strengthen, especially across parts of Scotland. There is an amber warning out for winds across northern and western Scotland. Here, damaging gusts could exceed 95 miles per hour, so some significant disruption is quite likely. Also staying windy, in fact increasingly windy across some parts of central eastern Scotland, northern England, parts of Wales and Northern Ireland as we go overnight, but the rain is pushing through. Further south, and like I said, actually yes, there will be some blustery wet weather here, but the weather doesn't look especially impactful. That being said, the rain's going to linger for a while across parts of the southeast as we go overnight. Other places will turn a bit drier across some parts of England and Wales with some clear skies, so temperatures could drop into single figures, but all the time as we go overnight, it's staying very windy and it's going to be pretty wet as well across much of Scotland. Then as we go through tomorrow, a bit of a wet start in the southeast, but that band of rain clears away, and then really we are still heavily under the influence of Storm Amy. It's going to continue to bring strong winds, especially to the north, but it's looking like a windy day for most of us, and plenty of showers piling in from the northwest, and some of these could be heavy, could even be thundery. Fresher air pushing in and those strong winds making it feel pretty raw.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I am Bev Turner. My panel are still here with me, Niall Gardner and Sarah Firth. We're going to go to London, though, to take a quick look at some of the newspaper front pages. Manchester, of course, is the story of the night. The Manchester Evening News leading with grief and anger after this morning's Islamist attack on a synagogue. Members of the Jewish community there in Manchester just hugging each other on the front page. 2 killed in terror attack outside the synagogue. They've put that story over the first 10 pages of the newspaper. The Sun's headline reads 7 minutes of evil as terrorist Jihad al-Shami is shot dead. Apologies if that picture is distressing for you. It is on the front page of some of the papers. It's been on social media all day today. That is the attacker who was obviously shot by very brave, just incredible armed police officers who were on site in North Manchester within minutes. The Daily Mail is reporting they were the first to go with this. They are saying the suspected Manchester attacker was, in bold red letters, an Islamic terrorist. That is what the Mail are reporting. As we say, we are yet to have that confirmed by the official authorities, although we know that the attacker is considered to be a Briton of Syrian origin, 35 years old. Let me know your thoughts this evening, gbnews.com/your say. Let's go now to former Special Advisor Boris Johnson, Oscar Redrop, who is in London. Briefly then, Oscar, tomorrow morning, of course, your morning, as you are now, there will still be a huge amount of questions that remain unanswered about this individual. And the one that I am particularly interested in is, was he known to the security services in this country?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's obviously not clear at this moment in time. I think, tomorrow as the UK wakes up, I think the horror of the attack will start to really set in. I think everyone in this country rightly will be thinking of those directly involved, the victims, their families, their friends, and of course the Jewish community right across this country, which this is a direct attack on. We've also seen in the UK, and I think there'll be a lot of political, and of course in an ideal world, you want to keep politics away from something as horrific as this, as a terror attack like this. But there will be political back and forth tomorrow, I think, as the country wakes up, in terms of the protests that continued, the pro-Palestinian protests that continued on a day of all days, and sections of those protests seeming to celebrate effectively what has happened today. That has big ramifications and big questions for us as a country. And then I think politically, again, probably the most, and it's really interesting, the front pages, how they've all covered the same story. Of course, there is only one story here in the UK. But, you look at the I paper that really centre on the bravery of the rabbi and the worshippers, probably preventing hundreds of other victims potentially. But the politics here is on the front page of the Telegraph, where we have Israel blames Starmer after synagogue terror rampage. And that is really, I think, politically where we're going to see problems for the Prime Minister and conversations arise in number 10 for sure.
OK, Oscar, thank you so much. We're going to come back to the studio here now in Washington, D.C. Oscar, great to see you. Good night. Thank you so much. People are getting in touch on Twitter as well this evening. Somebody's saying, the female guest you have on, Sarah, this is you, saying the issue isn't radical Islamism, but it's anti-Semitism. How does that explain the long, long list of indiscriminate Islamist terrorist attacks in the UK? Do these people think we're going to fall for this, these flagrant lies?
Look, it's a difficult moment. Do you know what? When you were doing the papers, Bev, I remember reporting on the last arena terror attack in Manchester, and I saw on the Manchester Evening News you had the B at the top of their paper. Now, that has actually been a symbol for Manchester, the worker bee, since I think the Industrial Revolution, and it's very, very old.
The Boddington's bitter symbol as well. It's Boddington's bitter.
Really, and it's it's about the sort of vibrancy, the buzzing of the city, the hard work ethic behind people who live in Manchester, and it became a symbol after the last terror attack, and it really became that symbol of like unity and solidarity. So again, the community in Manchester tonight are coming out saying, it's remarkable listening to some of the statements that are coming out from both interfaith groups, members of the Jewish community, saying that they're not going to allow this to break them. And just interestingly, guys, I think we have had a statement when it comes to a little bit more from the police. The spokesman for the police force saying that based on what they currently know, the records do not show any previous prevent referrals relating to this individual. So that's relating to 35-year-old Jihad al-Shami. They're of course going to be looking very closely into his background if there are any warning signs.
And there are other people who have been arrested this evening as well. Right, we've been showing you this footage tonight of these extraordinary pictures from New York's LaGuardia Airport. And what happened was there was two aeroplanes, two Delta passenger planes at the same company. At least that makes sorting out the insurance a bit easier. And one of them was stationary, one of them was moving, and one plane hit the other. They collided. There was nobody hurt actually, but it did rip the wing off one jet. There was one flight attendant I think was taken to hospital with some minor injury just for precautions. And we're looking at the pictures here. And a Delta spokesperson said Delta will work with all relevant authorities to review what occurred as the safety of our customers and people comes before anything else. I feel like we've had quite a few of these near misses on airports recently, Niall, where you kind of land and you think, oh, OK, I'm safe, I'm landed now. And they say, don't take your seatbelt off. And I've always wondered why, and now I know why.
Yes, what's going on with air traffic control and also the government shutdown forced by the Democrats, I might add. What role has that played? Also, lives have been placed at risk, frankly, because of the political games of left-wing Democrats here in Washington. This is a very serious matter. Lives are at risk.
Yeah. Let's have a look at one of the stories from inside the newspapers. This is about the Prince of Wales this evening. He has apparently said, change is on my agenda, change for good. It's his most personal interview so far. It's wide-ranging about his future role of the king, and William set out his approach to the monarchy, saying, I want to question things more, but central to his world, he says, is Kate and their 3 children. The most important thing in my life is family. The heir to the throne described how his wife's cancer battle left him overwhelmed, I bet it did, revealed his children do not have mobile phones, and said he aims to create a world in which my son is proud of what we do. Niall, you're a fan of the royal family. What do you make of that? I certainly am,
yes. And I do think that Prince William will make a superb future king. He's somebody who has tremendous leadership ability, such a beautiful family. And I think there's also a massive contrast between the kind of leadership that Prince William displays, the maturity, and contrast him with Prince Harry, of course, who is the complete opposite. And who still behaves like a spoiled brat, frankly, Prince Harry. We're very grateful that Prince William will be the king. It's not going to be Harry.
No.
They're worlds apart, aren't they, in terms of character and quality leadership and so on.
Yeah. I don't know whether you saw the pictures of Kate Middleton, as I still call her, the Princess of Wales, walking backwards down the steps of the aeroplane today in her 4-inch heels. Did you see her?
She is just incredible. The poise and grace of her. I mean, I also thought I missed which paper that was, but we need to take a moment for the sheer beauty of that headline. Air Force is just with H-E-I-R. I do miss the British papers headlines. They don't quite have the same.
You don't even have newspapers here in the US.
Yeah,
really,
it's true. Everyone's on their phones these days. But no, good for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. This. Very powerful. And I don't know about you, Ellen, but I thought we'd reached sort of peak satire when the imprint on the sand had a... So that is me talking to Alan Miller, co-founder and chair of Together Association, giving us his very important take on what is happening with digital ID in the UK. Do not miss it. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. I love this no breaks thing. I spoke to Together campaigner Alan Miller earlier today about digital ID. Here's what he had to say. Now, we know that a lot of you at home are concerned about the concept of digital ID and a big government being able to look into the minutiae of your lives. We had the news yesterday that support for digital ID has collapsed. It's gone down from about 35% of the British public to minus 14%. And one man who can take some credit for that nudging of the particular dial is Alan Miller from Together, and he joins me now. Alan, first of all, your reaction to that news that support for digital ID has gone through the floor.
Well, it's fantastic to see the great British public coming out and having their voices heard. It's also very interesting to see that across the political arena, from what they call the left to the centre and the right, there's unanimity in this. The idea that we have a biometric surveillance state constantly censoring, constantly surveying and monitoring the public. The British public do not want this. So it's fantastic to see that. But at the same time, we know that the people that are in power are quite determined to make sure this happens in an array of ways. So we have to stay very vigilant together.
You have been a big part of a lot of the what I would call the guerrilla marketing. Actually, you were at the Liverpool conference, the Labour conference, weren't you, up north? And tell us what you did there, because we saw some phenomenal, eye-catching stunts, basically.
Yeah, so we were at Labour Party conference, and the Together Declaration, we had a series of projections that had images of Keir Starmer as Big Brother in George Orwell's famous book, with no to digital ID, projected in lots of places like the Liver Building, James Street Station, and at Tobacco Dock. We also were working with the guys in New Brighton and Dan Davis, who had projections and posters all around New Brighton. And other stunts went on, like Fred, who did the thing down at the beach with the impression of Keir Starmer. And what we were doing as well was giving out flyers, and we organised a rally and a protest with farmers and with loads of people saying no to digital ID, which got a lot of attention and engaged with a lot of people who were attending the conference, and also lots of people in the Northwest who were there, and sort of explaining and why it was that we're so opposed to digital ID, and so many of them agreed with us. One of the funniest bits was when Everton football match was on, and all the footy fans were going past at the projections and cheering and taking photos.
Very powerful. And I don't know about you, Ellen, but I thought we'd reached sort of peak satire when the imprint on the sand had a police car pull up to work out what was going on. There was the state to police a sandcastle. Like, you literally couldn't write it, could you? Now listen, the government are probably going to still try and push this through. What methods do you think they're going to use next? Because the idea that it would stop illegal migration has just frankly dissolved.
Yeah, so Keir Starmer's recognised that the it will stop the boats argument has fallen completely, and it's just ridiculed. So at his speech at the party conference, he said we're going to have NHS digital. That's the big idea, and what it's going to do is it's going to reduce waiting times, and it's going to get you to a GP no matter where you are around the country. But of course, we know that's another spin, because the issue of not enough GPs and not enough time, and the issue with A&E, and the issue of too many bureaucrats and not enough frontline staff, but also a lack of efficiency, and the big question of what is to be done with healthcare in Britain, and whether we should have more of a mixed approach to it like they have on the continent in Europe. These things are not going to get resolved by a digital ID. And the big concerns, of course, with the health digital ID is what we've seen already when there was an attempt to impose a mandate for jabs for people who'd been working on the front line, 100,000 NHS staff. We'd already lost 45,000 care workers from it. The idea that we have a biometric state with a digital ID which nudges and forces and coerces people, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, it is, and I think they will keep trying all sorts of methods. So we've got to stay vigilant, Alan Miller. I know you always do. Thank you so much for joining GB News, and thank you for your hard work in this area. It's much appreciated. On digital IDs, here is what the Prime Minister has to say on it and why he thinks it's an important policy.
We need to be really clear. You must have ID, mandatory digital ID, in order to work, because we have to stop illegal working. If you look at any of the raids, we've massively increased the number of raids on working premises. It is absolutely clear that people are working illegally in number.
Niall, your thoughts on the concept of the British people being tied to a centralised digital ID system, please.
Well, I think they've already emphatically rejected it, as polls have demonstrated. I think that the British people view this whole digital ID as an Orwellian nightmare. It's been a disaster for Labour, and Keir Starmer, I think, is only starting now to wake up to the reality here. I mean, this is political poison, of course, for Labour. He should just drop it really as soon as possible. Well, and it's a deeply unpopular policy and the wrong policy as well, of course.
You knew her well. What would Margaret Thatcher have said?
I think she would have strongly opposed it, actually. She would have viewed it as big government, socialist overreach. And if she was with us today, I think she would have strongly fought it. It is an Orwellian nightmare. And surely, I think, Keir Starmer knows this, but it would be humiliating for him to backtrack. But I think everyone in the Labour cabinet knows this is a complete and utter disaster for them.
Well, right down to the name, Bev, because we were saying...
The Brit card.
The Brit card. GB News' own Chris Hope, he was interviewing Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar, talking about the Brit card, who then insisted that no, apparently it is not going to be called the Brit card. They've had pushback against that, although they didn't clarify what it will be called. But 2 million Brits have signed up to that petition now. When it was first announced, you saw the numbers rolling in, just across the board. Like you said, Bev, there in your interview earlier, it's beyond satire really at this point.
I think a lot of the British public saw through the notion that it was called the Brit card. I actually did a piece on this for the gbnews.com website, which is on YouTube, which was a monologue that I did months ago when they announced it was going to be called the Brit card, saying why I thought it was ridiculous and that we weren't going to buy into it. So I like to think I might have had something to do with that.
Keir Starmer's listening.
Yeah, exactly. Keir Starmer's listening. Where will they go now with it, though, now? Because the infrastructure's there. It's built. It's paid for.
Yeah.
I don't know what this could be the most catastrophic waste of money. Yet another catastrophic waste of money. We saw the 30 billion, I think it was, spent on the infrastructure for the track and trace during the pandemic. I do wonder which of that has been remodelled to be. I have no evidence of that.
Yeah.
But whether that has been used to start this track and trace surveillance app is what it will be.
Yeah, it's a huge waste of taxpayers' money, of course, and no doubt this will be used against critics of the government, thousands of people have been arrested already for their social media tweets, and you can see how this will be used actually to suppress genuine freedom of speech. It's not going to be used actually against illegal migration. It's going to be used against the British people actually, and I think this is what it's about. It's about power and control. Although, Keir Starmer in that interview looked like a sort of Winnie the Pooh, but sort of Orwellian Winnie the Pooh. But the reality is that this is a very sinister thing. I don't trust this Keir Starmer government one bit. They will use it against the British people.
There were a lot of MPs at the Labour Party conference coming out and saying, Bev, I mean, literally interviewed some of them. You are using your imagination. That is not what it is going to be. It will be entirely benevolent. It's about organising. And there is an argument to say that our digital systems should be better organised, Sarah, briefly.
Yeah, I mean, look, the government is saying this is about verifying your identification when you go for a job. They have to, it's going to be a good thing, basically. You will not be able to work without it.
Yeah, well, let's see. Watch this space. It is certainly a developing story. Thank you for getting in touch. The inbox was really busy tonight. I'm so sorry I didn't get to more of your messages. Well, thank you for spending your night with The Late Show Live and with me, Bev. Thank you to my panel of Sarah Firth and Niall Gardner. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I tell you who'll be here tomorrow night because it's Friday. Ben Leo will be back here on GB News, midnight in the UK, 7 p.m. Eastern in America. Sleep well.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, very good morning to you. I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Yes, Storm Amy is going to arrive through today. It's going to bring damaging winds and heavy persistent rain, especially across northern parts. Further south, the weather's looking less impactful, and actually many places are starting the day with some quiet weather. But quite quickly, the heavy persistent rain across parts of Northern Ireland will feed its way eastwards, so most places are going to turn pretty wet as we go through the afternoon. Also watch out for those strengthening winds, especially across northern parts. Now, temperatures on paper are going to be peaking in the mid to high teens Celsius, but with the rain, with the strong winds pushing in, it's going to feel pretty unpleasant for most of us. Then, as we go into this evening, that's when the winds are really going to start to strengthen, especially across parts of Scotland. There is an amber warning out for winds across northern and western Scotland. Here, damaging gusts could exceed 95 miles per hour, so some significant disruption is quite likely. Also staying windy, in fact increasingly windy across some parts of central eastern Scotland, northern England, parts of Wales and Northern Ireland as we go overnight, but the rain is pushing through. Further south, and like I said, actually yes, there will be some blustery wet weather here, but the weather doesn't look especially impactful. That being said, the rain's going to linger for a while across parts of the southeast as we go overnight. Other places will turn a bit drier across some parts of England and Wales with some clear skies, so temperatures could drop into single figures, but all the time as we go overnight, it's staying very windy and it's going to be pretty wet as well across much of Scotland. Then as we go through tomorrow, a bit of a wet start in the southeast, but that band of rain clears away, and then really we are still heavily under the influence of Storm Amy. It's going to continue to bring strong winds, especially to the north, but it's looking like a windy day for most of us, and plenty of showers piling in from the northwest, and some of these could be heavy, could even be thundery. Fresher air pushing in and those strong winds making it feel pretty raw.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry